You really think freezing that account is going to stop anything? Mum and I have been handling the real weight, while you sit up there acting like the rules don't apply to you. Ryan needs that money now, and Lily will be fine. You're not going to punish him because you suddenly decided to play gatekeeper. Hi, my name is Olivia Harper. I am 31 years old. The call ended, and I set the phone face down on the counter. My older sister Brooke had not raised her voice, but every word landed exactly where she intended. I had already frozen the education fund for my daughter Lily 2 days earlier after the third unexplained transfer appeared on the statement. I had not told anyone. Brooke knew anyway. I opened the folder on my laptop again. The misplaced contract copy had arrived in the mail the week before, addressed to me in my mother's handwriting. It was the original account agreement for Lily's fund. My mother Carol's signature sat on the authorized user line, the one I had added years ago when paperwork felt like the responsible thing to do. Attached to it was a transaction history I had never requested. Small withdrawals every few weeks routed to an account I did not recognize. The memo lines read, "Family support." The amounts matched the shortfalls I had been tracking. I had been patient. I had checked the statements, quietly told myself there had to be a mistake, that my mother would never move money without asking. The contract copy removed that possibility. The transfers had been happening for 14 months. The next morning, an email arrived from an address that was only a string of numbers. No name. The subject line said only check the older statements. The body listed 6 transfers I had not yet seen, all from the same period the year before. One of them matched the exact amount my sister had spent on Ryan's new training equipment. I forwarded the email to Isabella Cruz at work. She replied in under an hour, "Get a lawyer before you say another word to either of them." I made the appointment with Alexander Quinn for Friday. Isabella had worked with him on a custody case 2 years earlier and said he did not waste time on drama. I needed that. That afternoon, I drove to the bank branch in the valley. Karen Ellis, the manager I had dealt with when I opened the account, met me in a small glass office. She pulled up the records without being asked twice. When I showed her the contract copy and the anonymous list, she studied the screen for a long time. "These authorizations were processed under the secondary user permissions," she said finally. "Your mother's name is on file for that. We can freeze the account from our end immediately, but recovering the funds already moved will require documentation." I asked her to flag every transaction that did not have my direct approval. She nodded and printed the full history. As I stood to leave, she added almost as an afterthought that the bank had received an internal compliance note about the account 2 weeks earlier. Someone had called in a concern. She could not say who. I drove back up the hill with the printed pages on the passenger seat. The anonymous email had not come from the bank. Someone else had noticed. That evening, I installed a simple recording app on my phone and tested it once. I did not plan to use it yet. I only wanted the option. 2 days later, my mother called. I let it ring long enough that the voicemail light came on, then played the message on speaker while I made coffee. "Olivia Honeybrook says you froze everything. We were only trying to help with Ryan's camp this summer. You know how tight things have been for her since Derek left. Can we talk about this like adults?" I saved the message and labelled the file with the date. The warmth in her voice was the same one she had used when I was 12, and she needed me to watch Brooke's kids so she could run errands. It had always worked then. Friday morning, I sat across from Alexander Quinn in his downtown office. I placed the folder on his desk without small talk. He read the contract copy, the transaction logs, and the anonymous emails in silence. When he finished, he closed the folder and looked at me. "You have standing to pursue recovery," he said. "The secondary user exceeded the documented scope the moment the transfers left the education purpose. The fact that the funds went to your sister's personal account strengthens the case. We can file a demand letter this week and request an accounting. If they push back, we move to formal discovery." I asked what would happen to the relationship with my mother and sister if we proceeded. He did not soften the answer. "Once this becomes a legal matter, the family dynamic you had before is over. You can choose to stop at the demand letter and see if they return the money quietly, or you can let it run its course. Either way, the trust is already broken. The question is whether you want the money back or the relationship back. You probably cannot have both." I signed the authorization for him to send the demand letter. On the way out of the building, I checked my phone. Another text from Brooke had arrived while I was inside. "Mom is upset. You're making this into something it doesn't have to be. Ryan is 8. He still has a chance to do something with his life if people stop putting obstacles in front of him. I saved the text. I did not answer. That night I sat at the kitchen table with the folder open again. The contract copy was on top. The signature line with my mother's name looked ordinary, the same looping script she used on birthday cards. Underneath it, the transaction list ran down the page in neat columns. Every line represented money that had been meant for Lily's future and had instead gone to Ryan's equipment, his camps, his private lessons. I closed the folder and placed it in the drawer beside the recorder. The anonymous emails had given me the start. Alexander Quinn had given me the next step. What came after that would depend on whether my mother and sister chose to return the money or force the next escalation. I turned off the kitchen light and walked down the hallway to check on Lily. She was asleep, one arm thrown over the book she had been reading. I stood in the doorway longer than I needed to. The fund had been the one thing I had built that was supposed to be untouchable. They had touched it anyway. The phone vibrated in my pocket. I did not look at it. I already knew it would be either my mother or my sister, and I had nothing left to say to either of them until the demand letter arrived. The demand letter from Alexander Quinn went out Monday morning. By Tuesday afternoon, the vibration of my phone had become a steady background rhythm I no longer bothered to silence. My older sister's first text arrived at 1:17 p.m. "You really went and hired a lawyer. Mum is a wreck. She keeps saying she only signed what you asked her to sign years ago. If you drag this into court, you are going to destroy what is left of this family over money that was never only yours to begin with." I read it once, saved it to the folder on my laptop, and set the phone face down. 20 minutes later, another message came through. Ryan cried when I told him camp might be cancelled. He is 8 years old, Olivia. He does not understand why his aunts suddenly decided he does not matter. You could have just said no, instead of turning this into a legal war. I forwarded both texts to Isabella Cruz. She replied with a single line, "Do not respond. Let the lawyer handle it." I followed the instruction. Wednesday morning, Karen Ellis from the bank called. Her voice stayed professionally neutral. "Ms. Harper, our compliance department received an internal report on the account activity before your freeze request. The officer who flagged it is Linda Morales. She asked if you would be willing to speak with her directly. She cannot discuss details over the phone, but she said the pattern extended beyond the education fund." I scheduled the call for Thursday. When I hung up, I opened the folder again and added Karen's name and the new information. The anonymous emails had not come from the bank after all. Someone inside had chosen to risk their own position to send the first warning. That afternoon, my mother called. I let the recording app run before I answered. "Olivia, sweetheart, I know you are upset. Brooke showed me the letter from the lawyer. We never meant to take anything that belonged to Lily. Ryan just needed a few things, and Brooke was drowning after Derek left. I thought using the authorized line was the quickest way to help without bothering you while you were working." I kept my voice flat. The fund was set up for Lily's college. The transfers went to Brooke's personal account. That is not helping. That is moving money without permission. There was a pause, then her tone shifted into the familiar patient explanation she had used my entire life. "You have always been careful with money, Olivia. That is a good quality. But family is not a ledger. Sometimes you have to bend the rules a little when someone you love is struggling." Brooke did not ask me to do anything I did not already think was right. I ended the call after telling her Alexander Quinn would be in touch. I saved the recording under the date and labelled it Carol. First admission. The file sat next to the contract copy and the transaction logs. Thursday, I spoke with Linda Morales. She did not waste time on introductions. I flagged the account 6 weeks ago after noticing repeated transfers that did not match the documented purpose. I sent the anonymous summary because I could not go through normal channels without risking my job. Your mother used the secondary authorization repeatedly. The total moved is $48,000 over 14 months. Most of it landed in your sister's checking account. Some of it paid for private coaching and equipment billed directly to your sister's name. I asked her why she had not reported it through the bank's fraud system. She was quiet for a moment. Because the secondary user was your mother, and the funds were going to another family member. I have seen cases where families fight it out in court, and the bank still gets sued for acting too fast or too slow. I gave you the information so you could decide what to do. If you want to pursue recovery, I can provide the full audit trail under subpoena. Otherwise, I have already put my neck out further than I should. I thanked her and told her Alexander Quinn would be contacting the bank. After the call, I added her name to the folder. The anonymous tip that started everything now had a face and a reason. Friday, Alexander called with an update. Your sister's ex-husband, Derek Sullivan, was served with the demand letter at his new address. He called my office this morning. He said he had no knowledge of the transfers and that your sister had been telling him the money for Ryan's activities came from her own savings. He is willing to sign an affidavit stating he never saw any of the funds. That may help establish that the money was not used for joint marital expenses. I asked what that changed. Alexander's answer was direct. It weakens any claim that the transfers were legitimate family support. It also puts pressure on your sister. If Derek distances himself publicly, she loses the narrative that she was simply a struggling single mother. People hate watching someone play the victim when the numbers show otherwise. That evening, I sat at the kitchen table with the folder open. The contract copy, the transaction logs, the recordings, the texts, Linda Morales' statement, Derek's willingness to sign. The pieces were no longer scattered. They formed a straight line from my mother's signature to my sister's account to the equipment and camps Ryan had received. My phone lit up with a call from Brooke. I answered and let the recorder run. You think you are so much better than us because you live in that villa and work in an office. Mum has always cleaned up your messes, and now you are punishing her for it. Ryan is a child. He did not ask to be born into a broken family. You could have just transferred the money quietly instead of hiring some shark lawyer to humiliate us. I kept my voice even. The money was never yours or Mom's to decide. It was Lily's. You took it anyway. Brooke laughed once short and sharp. Lily is 9. She does not even know the account exists. Ryan actually needs the help now. You are going to look back on this and realize you chose a number on a screen over your own family. Mum will never forgive you for this. I will make sure of it. She hung up before I could answer. I saved the recording and labelled it Brooke. Direct admission. The file joined the others. Saturday morning, another text arrived from my sister. Mum is not sleeping. She keeps saying she raised 2 daughters, and now one of them is trying to destroy the other. If you drop this, we can all move on. If you do not, I will make sure everyone knows you put money ahead of your nephew's future. I did not reply. I forwarded it to Alexander and to Isabella. Isabella's response came quickly. She is escalating because she is scared. Stay quiet. That afternoon, I took Lily to the park at the base of the hill. She asked why we had not signed up for the summer reading program yet. I told her we would look at the schedule next week. She accepted the answer and went back to the swings. I watched her and thought about the $48,000 that had already left the account. The number no longer felt abstract. It was the cost of keeping my older sister's life looking intact, while my daughter's future quietly shrank. Sunday. The demand letter's response arrived by courier. My mother had signed a short statement through her own attorney claiming the transfers were authorized under the secondary user agreement and were used for legitimate family needs. Brooke had not signed anything. The letter offered to return $12,000 as a good faith gesture if I dropped all further claims. Alexander called within an hour of me scanning it to him. They are testing whether you will accept a partial return and go away. We can counter with a full accounting and a deadline. If they refuse, we file in civil court and subpoena the bank records. At that point, the recordings and Linda Morales' statement become evidence. Your sister's ex-husband's affidavit would also come in. The leverage shifts hard in your favor once discovery starts. I told him to send the counter. After the call, I closed the folder and placed it back in the drawer. The recorder sat beside it. I had not needed to use it in person yet, but the files were growing. Monday morning, my older sister texted again. Mum just got the new letter. She is crying in the kitchen. You are really going to do this. You are going to take us to court over money that helped your own nephew. I hope you can live with what you are doing to this family. I saved the message. I did not answer. The phone vibrated once more 10 minutes later. This time it was a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. The message was short and from a voice I did not recognize at first. Olivia, this is Derek. Brooke's ex. I signed the affidavit your lawyer sent. I also have some messages and emails from Brooke from last year where she talks about the money coming from your account. I did not know where it was really coming from until the letter arrived. If you need more than the affidavit, I will give it. She lied to me too. I played the message twice. Then I forwarded it to Alexander Quinn. The folder now contained a new name and a new set of potential evidence. That evening, I sat on the edge of Lily's bed while she read. She looked up once and asked if everything was okay at work. I told her it was fine. She went back to the book. I stayed until her breathing evened out. Then I walked back to the kitchen and opened the drawer that held the folder and the recorder. The next move was no longer mine to decide alone. Alexander would file if the counter was refused. Linda Morales had already risked her position. Derek Sullivan had stepped outside the family story Brooke had built. The pieces were in motion, and the only question left was how far my mother and my older sister were willing to go to keep what they had taken. The phone lit up on the counter. Another text from Brooke. You have until Friday to drop this, or I start telling people the real reason you froze the account. Mom is not the only one who can hire a lawyer. I saved it with the others. Then I turned the phone face down and left it on the counter. The recorder stayed in the drawer. I had not used it in person yet, but the files were already long enough to show exactly what had been happening while I had been patient. The text from my older sister sat on the screen until the phone went dark. I saved it with the rest. Derek's voicemail had already gone to Alexander Quinn. The folder on my laptop now held enough to end any claim that the transfers had been innocent mistakes. Tuesday morning, Alexander called with the update I had been waiting for. They rejected the counter. Your mother's attorney sent a short response refusing full accounting and claiming the secondary authorization covered everything. Your sister has not responded at all. We file tomorrow. Once discovery begins, the bank records Linda Morales' statement and Derek Sullivan's affidavit go in. The recordings stay in our possession unless they force the issue in court. I told him to proceed. After the call, I opened the folder one last time and added the rejection letter. The pieces no longer needed interpretation. They formed a single line from my mother's signature through the transfers to my sister's account and the expenses for Ryan. Wednesday. The first public ripple arrived. My cousin, Jason Reed, texted me a screenshot of a post my older sister had put up on a private family group. The caption read that some people in the family had decided money mattered more than blood, and that she was praying for clarity for everyone involved. Jason's message underneath was short. This is about the account, isn't it? I saw the demand letter when it hit Derek. If you have proof, send it. I'm not choosing sides without facts. I forwarded the folder to Jason with a single sentence. This is what they took from Lily. He replied 2 hours later that he had shared it with 2 other cousins who had received the same post. The private group went quiet after that. No one defended my mother or my sister in the thread I could see. Thursday, my older sister called. I answered and let the recorder run without saying hello first. You sent that folder to Jason. You really are trying to burn everything down. Mum is humiliated. She has not left the house. Ryan keeps asking why his aunt hates him. You could have fixed this quietly, and instead, you chose to make us look like thieves in front of the whole family. I kept my voice level. You took the money. The recordings show you and Mom discussing it as if it was already decided. Derek's messages confirm you lied to him about where it came from. The bank has the trail. This is not about hate. It is about what you did. She was quiet for 3 seconds. Then the sarcasm returned colder. You always needed to be the responsible one. Fine. See what happens when the rest of the family realizes you are willing to drag your own mother into court over $48,000 that helped a child who actually needed it. I hope Lily grows up proud of what her mother chose to destroy. She ended the call. I saved the file and labeled it with the date. The folder now contained the final admission I needed. Friday afternoon, Alexander called again. They want to meet, both of them with their attorney present. Tomorrow at my office. They are offering full restitution plus interest if you sign a confidentiality agreement and drop any further claims. No admission of wrongdoing on their side. I asked what would happen if I refused the meeting. His answer was simple. We file Monday. Discovery starts and everything becomes public record. Your choice. I chose the meeting. Saturday morning, I drove down the hill with the folder and the recorder in my bag. Alexander met me in the conference room first. He placed a single sheet on the table. This is the last document we received this morning from Derek's attorney. It is a copy of messages between your sister and your mother from 13 months ago. Your mother initiated the first transfer suggestion. She framed it as temporary help that you would never notice because you were busy with work. Your sister agreed and asked how to structure the memos so they looked like family support. The chain continues for 6 months. Your mother was the one who kept the transfers small enough to avoid flags. I read the messages. The language was careful but unmistakable. My mother had proposed the method. My older sister had executed it and asked for more when Ryan's activities increased. The pact was not equal. It had a clear starting point. When my mother and my older sister arrived with their attorney, the room stayed silent for the first minute. My mother sat with her hands folded. My older sister kept her eyes on the table. Alexander opened the meeting by placing the full folder in the center. We have the complete transaction history, the contract copy with the secondary authorization, Linda Morales' statement, Derek Sullivan's affidavit, and the recorded conversations in which both of you acknowledged the transfers were not authorized by Olivia. We also have the message chain from 13 months ago, showing who initiated the plan. Full restitution of $48,000, plus the interest the account would have earned paid into Lily's fund by close of business. Monday ends this matter. Any refusal, and we file on Monday morning. My mother's attorney spoke first. My clients are prepared to return the principal as a gesture of family resolution. They do not admit liability. Alexander slid the message chain across the table. This chain shows initiation and intent. It removes any claim of misunderstanding. The recordings remove any claim of good faith. The choice is restitution with a confidentiality agreement or public filing. My older sister looked at the pages. Her voice came out low and tight. You recorded us. I answered without raising my voice. I recorded the conversations where you explained why the money belonged to Ryan instead of Lily. The bank records show where it went. Derek's messages show you lied to him. Jason and the others have the same folder now. The only thing left to decide is whether you return the money before the court orders it and adds penalties. My mother finally spoke. Her voice was smaller than I had ever heard it. I only did it because Brooke needed help, and you were always so strict about the account. I thought it would be temporary. I did not answer her. Alexander placed the settlement document on the table. My mother signed first. My older sister hesitated, then signed, the attorney countersigned, and slid the paper to me. I signed last. The meeting ended without handshakes. My mother and my older sister left through the side door. I stayed long enough to confirm the wire instructions for the restitution and to thank Alexander and Linda Morales for the work that had made the numbers visible. Monday, the $48,000 plus calculated interest landed in Lily's fund. Alexander sent the confirmation and the signed confidentiality agreement. The civil filing was never made. The folder stayed in my drawer. The weeks after were quiet in a way that felt final rather than peaceful. My mother did not call. My older sister sent one last text the day after the wire cleared. I hope you are satisfied. Mom will not recover from this. Neither will Ryan. I saved it and did not reply. Jason Reed texted once to say the private group had gone completely silent and that 2 aunts had asked him what happened. He told them the truth, and the questions stopped. I told Lily only that the account issue had been resolved and that some family members would not be visiting for a while. She accepted the answer, the way children accept changes they do not fully understand. We signed up for the summer reading program and the local swim lessons. The money that had been taken was back where it belonged. The people who had taken it were no longer part of the decisions about how it would be used. Isabella Cruz came over one Saturday with her daughter. We sat on the back deck while the girls played and she asked how I was sleeping. I told her I was sleeping. The weight of waiting for the next transfer or the next explanation had lifted. In its place was a clear line I had drawn and would keep drawing. 2 months later, Derek Sullivan reached out one more time through Alexander to say he had finalized his divorce and that Brooke had moved Ryan to a smaller apartment across town. The private coaching had ended. The equipment had been sold. Derek did not ask for anything. He only said he wanted the record to show he had not been part of the transfers. I did not see my mother or my older sister again. The confidentiality agreement prevented me from speaking publicly about the details, but the people who mattered already knew. The folder remained closed in the drawer. I opened it once more 6 months after the wire to add the final bank confirmation that the interest had been calculated correctly and the account was whole. Then I closed it for the last time. The lesson I carry is simple and permanent. Blood creates a starting point, not a permanent claim. When people treat that starting point as permission to take what belongs to a child, the only response that protects the child is to make the taking visible and irreversible. I did not win back a family. I protected the one I had chosen to build. The cost was every remaining tie to the people who had decided my daughter's future was negotiable. That cost was exact, and I paid it without bargaining. I still live in the same villa on the hill. Lily still asks questions about cousins and grandparents sometimes. I answer with the truth that some relationships end when trust is broken beyond repair. She accepts that answer now the same way she accepts that the account is safe again. The quiet that followed the restitution is not emptiness. It is the absence of the next demand, the next justification, the next small transfer that would have continued if I had stayed patient. Thank you for listening to my story. If you have ever watched someone you trusted treat your child's future as something they could borrow without asking, you already know the choice I faced. What would you have done when the numbers and the recordings finally matched? Comment your story now.